by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy.
Let's win there.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so
Exactly.
that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
And we're back with another episode of Who is They? Welcome back, Mrs. Heritage History. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be back, and even though I think that last video was a little bit too much, it was a little bit too long, it was really good. This is the one that's a Sephardic Phoenician, Sephardic, whatever. I was really glad to get through all that stuff, even if I did a bad job in parts of it. It was just, there's so much stuff, and I think I was able to make a point that it has been really hard to bring together. So I was happy with it, even though it went on too long and was a little rambling.
It was great. Before we start, though, I just want to say shout out to everybody. Thanks for being here today, and thanks for all your support on this channel. And I just want to let you know that if you like content like this, we like doing it for you. But it costs money to do all of this stuff, and we give our content away for free so that we can attract the biggest audience possible. But we are completely dependent upon the support of our subscribers, our paid subscribers. And so if you could become a paid subscriber to the Duke Report, that would be the best way to support us. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/The Duke Report, you can also buy us a coffee. And there's different ways to, if you go onto the Duke Report Substack, if you hit the shop button, you can buy t-shirts and things like that. But I just wanted to say before we started that we really do need your support. And it would be great if you could see value in the stuff that we're doing here today, if you could become a paid subscriber to the Duke Report. So with that, I will go back to what we were talking about the last time we spoke. We did a pre-recorded podcast, and I'm sorry if the ice cream truck sound is going in the background here. It is summer here at the beach, but anyway, we tried to do as much as we could about, and there were some comments that people had about the pronunciation of the word Sepharad or Sephard or Sephardic, and there isn't a good answer there. Part of the reason that I didn't interrupt you when we were talking before is that I did do a little bit of research on it before we started the show, and it's not cut and dried whether it's Sephardic or Sephardic. I mean, definitely the Hebrews pronounced it Sephardic, but there's a lot of transliteration when you're going from Aramaic to Hebrew to Greek, or from Aramaic to Greek to Hebrew. The P's and the F's get moved around. Like if you're following the Black Guelphs, Guelf, that sometimes they're the Welfs, sometimes they're the Guelphs. The G's and the W's get switched. So for people who are really sure of themselves and they go, oh no, it's pronounced with an F sound, I wouldn't be so sure. So that.
But also, I'm not great at pronunciation, and you should never. I'm a reader, I read a lot of stuff, but I'm not the person you go to for linguistic authority at all. So I kind of, probably if I'd thought about it, I probably would have tried to say the F word, because say it with the F sound, because that does seem to be the preferred way now. But anyway, I think that too. However,
And Debbie makes a good point here,
Yeah.
which is either means the same in the end.
yes.
Okay, so who cares, right?
Well, some people care, and if somebody really thinks I'm mispronouncing it, and I'm trying to be an expert on this, and I continually mispronounce this, it can be very irritating for people who care about these things. I'm not saying you shouldn't care about them. I'm just saying that I am not good at them. That's
Right. And to be sure, I mean, should we go over the map and the Bible thing for a second before we start? Or
you know what? I do want to talk about the Sephardic stuff, because I was really interested in what we found. Both of us kind of were going into the thing going like, well, this is from the Bible. That's the only reference to it. We can't figure out what it means, as we can't break it down in a reasonable way to what it means. And then I think we have figured out what it is. So,
right. So, right. So let me just do a quick review, and then so basically, the word only appears in the Old Testament once, and only in certain versions. So if you're looking at the Vulgate, which is Jerome, which is the Roman Church's Bible, it's called the Book of Obadiah. I'm sorry, it's called the Prophecy of this. I'm sorry, this is where I get dyslexic when I'm switching Bibles around, because I tweeted this out, and I tweeted out exactly backwards, and then I had to delete my tweets and then restate it. So in the Vulgate, it's called the Prophecy of Obadiah. In the Protestant Bible, starting with the Geneva Bible, and this is a King James, it's called the Book of Obadiah. Okay. And so it isn't in the Vulgate. And so this is, here, so I got to get rid of this and then put this in here. So hang on, that's, here's the Vulgate. So here's what's interesting. In the Vulgate, it says, and the captivity of this host of the children of Israel, all the places of the Canaanites, even to Sarepta, and the captivity of Jerusalem. I had to figure out what "and the captivity of Jerusalem" means. The people of the diaspora that is in Bosphorus. Okay, so I'm going to take this out for a sec. Okay, so keep that in mind, that in the Vulgate, in the Latin, in Jerome, it says Bosphorus. But when it got translated again in Geneva and then got turned into the King James Bible, it gets turned into Sepharad. And this is the only place where this word exists in the Old Testament. And it's only in the Protestant Old Testament. So, and again, there's all kinds of conjecture about what the oldest version of the Old Testament is, because there are Hebrew texts, but there are many people who argue that the Hebrew texts are transliterated from an older Greek Septuagint. So it starts to get confusing. But so you got Sepharad here, and then you've got Bosphorus. Okay, so I'm going to remove this, and then I'm going to bring up this map, because this is just Google Earth. And what people need to understand, okay, so what we found out, and I'll show you the line of thinking, is that Sepharads means Sardis. Okay, and Sardis is a city in Lydia, which is now Turkey, which is right here. Okay, so in the middle of Turkey, I'll turn off the terrain so you can kind of see it better. But here's Turkey. Okay, all of the stuff in the Bible happens down here in Israel, right? And then you go north in the Mediterranean, and you go up towards the Adriatic, which is this sea right here, which is between Greece and Turkey. And you've got Sardis right there. So Bosphorus is right here. It's this area where the Black Sea and the Adriatic, it's the Adriatic, right?
It's Constantinople, basically.
Yeah, it's Constantinople, right? Which is today called Istanbul, right? Istanbul, not Constantinople. One of my favorite songs by They Might Be Giants. Anyway, this is the Bosphorus, and this is Sardis. So what's interesting is that the book is written down here, okay, but in the oldest version, but that's a good question about the Greek. I can go look at my document because it's probably in my document. Because it's arguable, like, which is the oldest version. So in the Roman Church version, it's Bosphorus. In the Protestant version, it's Sephard. And the scholarly work that I've been looking at suggests that Sephard means from Sardis, which is interesting. So we do have a linguist working on this also. So this is not the final word. This is just where we are.
But when he told me that it meant Sardis,
yeah, I
thought, oh my gosh, I know why. I see the connection immediately, because Sardis, I talked last time about how Spain was the silver house of Europe, and it had huge amounts of gold mines and silver mines and copper mines, and that's why it was so important. Well, Sardis, if you've heard of King Croesus, the richest man in the ancient world, Sardis was his capital. And the river that goes through Sardis, which goes by numerous names, I forget what it was in ancient times, but that's where all the gold and silver were mined in ancient times, in kind of contemporary. And so to me, in the ancient world, Sardis was equivalent to discussing a hugely rich area. It's also the legend of how all the gold got there was King Midas, who had the gold touch and wanted to get rid of the gold touch. Went to that river and bathed in it or something like that. And that's how all the gold got into Sardis. So it's notorious for riches. And so somehow or other, the Sephardic Jews are now, have that name Sardis, which is also associated with riches. So it made a lot of sense to me that, that's the insiders, the insiders who know why Spain was important to that particular group of Phoenicians. It all clicked. I was like, oh, if it's Sardis, that's it. That's what it means. So
right.
They're referring to Spain as the super rich mining area.
Right. So that led me on this journey, and I found this website, and this is sardisexpedition.org. And it turns out that Sardis, again, this is my epistemological frame for how I look at things, but if people are spending tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars on archaeology over the last 100 years, to the point where they have a whole website about it, and there's dozens of books. Again, I went to the publications. I downloaded every one of these publications to put into my database. Because again, when I see this stuff like this, I want to build this. But jumping back to how I got here, on this website, there's a guy named Eno Lippmann, who in 1916 was writing in his notes about a guy named Lassen. What was Lassen's first name? Anyway, Lassen found the inscription that was the equivalent of the Rosetta Stone, where it had a a list of Lydian terms, and then it had them in another language. I think it was Greek. So it had it in two different languages, and they were etched in stone. And so what he found was that the equivalent name for Sephard was Sardis. So in 1903, this guy Lassen figured out that actually it says 1845. That's might have been when he was born. Oh no, Andreas confirmed it. Lassen figured out in 1845. Andreas confirmed it in 1903, and then Lippmann published it in a book in 1916. That Sephard, SFRD, is the Hebrew name for the Greek or Lydian Sardis. So it means from Sardis, people who are from Sardis. That at least that's as far as I've gotten so far.
But it rang a bell. It makes sense to me that you would refer to both Spain and Sardis as the same name, So anyway, but
Spain is over here. But
Yeah.
Spain was, again, it was full of silver, right?
Silver, gold, copper, mercury, you name it.
Okay, silver, gold, and mercury, and there was silver, gold, and mercury here.
Silver, gold, mostly.
Right, and so the unanswered question that we have right now is why in the Roman Bibles does it say
Well,
here?
Constantinople, even when it was the name of Constantinople before it was Constantinople, I believe was Bosporus. So I think Bosporus is now the name of the channel, but I think that was the name of the original city before it was built up. So for ancient times, and it was always a center. It's been a center of Jewish. It's for all time. There's always been a big Jewish quarter in Bosporus, Constantinople. And if, as I say, the Roman Empire was actually controlled by Phoenicians, it would, and they're the ones who built up Constantinople. It's a super, super, super strategic place for trading. So, and always has been.
Right. And the other thing that I was thinking too is that if you were on your way from Jerusalem to the Bosphorus, you'd have to pass by Lydia. You'd have to pass by the area, the part of the world that was controlled by Sardis at that time too. So,
well, I don't understand why they changed it, but either one of those places would have been a very, very important ancient trading area, because Sardis because of the gold, and Istanbul because of the very, very important strategic location.
Right, but just adding to this one more time is that it says, and the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharads. So what it's saying is the diaspora,
right.
The diaspora Jews who live in Sardis is my
or the Bosporus. So,
right.
They just switched cities, and we don't really know why.
Right.
So,
we'll try to find out.
Okay.
All right. So that's my catch up. I also I want to do a disclaimer here too, because I don't know if you experienced this, but like every ADL anti-Semitic bot signature reduction account attacked me after the last show.
They attacked you. They didn't attack me.
Yeah. So if people want to ask, obviously, inflammatory questions, you're going to get banned immediately. So Jessica, I've told her, just get rid of those people immediately. So let us know early who you are so that we can just get rid of you.
Okay. Well, I don't even care. So, I mean, I want to waste my time. I don't like stupid questions.
Right.
But I'm here, you know, if it's an intelligent, inflammatory question, I'm fine with it. Anyway, so what I wanted to do before we answer questions is get to a few things I wanted to clarify from the last.
Yeah, we should tell people that we want to answer questions on this. So if you've got questions, ask them now. So
right.
And put a Q in front of them. That would be great.
And one is it's important because I misspoke this numerous times, and I said that the first evidence of the Hebrews on Iberia was the 2nd to 4th century BC, and it was AD, which is very, very important because that means that was really not until almost Christian times that there was evidence of Hebrew worship on the Iberian Peninsula. And my claim is that at the time that Christian Roman Empire got rid of these pagan temples, the Phoenicians became Jews or whatever. Okay, and then the second thing that I said, really stupid, and I'm going to make a big deal about this, partly because I misspoke, but partly because I'm getting a lot of questions about Venice. And Venice, and this somewhat addresses the Venice issue, but not really. But I'll be able to explain why I can't make a cleaner connection. One of the things, as I said, is that the Macedonians controlled the Cisalpine Gaul, which just makes no sense. I mean, the north part of the Adriatic is what I think I said. And I meant the north part of the Aegean, which we weren't talking about. So, but I said Venice in there. So that was just dumb. But one of the reasons that got crossed in my mind is that Carthage was allied with some of the tribes of Cisalpine Gaul. And I think that's right from the Second Punic War. That's why Hannibal crossed the Alps, is to join up with his allies in Cisalpine Gaul.
It's interesting because there was a Republic of Cisalpine Gaul.
No, it was a bunch of tribes up there.
No, but there was a republic at one point, I think, after World War I.
Oh, yeah. That's way later.
How do I know?
How
do I know this?
How?
Because I was researching every state seal that has a Phrygian cap on it.
That's Idaho has a Phrygian cap on it.
Right.
So it's
right.
And I can verify that.
So I think the Republic of Cisalpine Gaul,
yeah, that makes total sense.
Had a Phrygian.
Because that was Napoleon's, and that was maybe during the French Revolutionary Wars. So
right. That's when it was. Yeah.
Now try and explain Idaho's Phrygian cap that way. It's harder to explain. Okay. But anyway, why this is all important is I'm going to try and explain something. That it was the Macedonians were actually allied also with Carthage. So
and I'll bring up the map again.
Yeah. But they were over in the Aegean and not in the Adriatic. So what I've already known, and it's very important, and I haven't brought it up again, is that the Adriatic Sea in ancient times was controlled allegedly by a group called the Adriatic Veneti. Now, obviously, to me, Veneti means bending or selling. But what's really interesting is there was 2 other Veneti, which were not ethnically related at all, but they also had some control over trade. So these merchant networks that had control over trade in certain areas appears to be called the Veneti, but it's really, really hard to find good information about any Veneti.
So let me just show people. So Carthage is Tripoli today, right? I think.
Tunis. Carthage is
Tunis, right? Okay, so
I think Tripoli is a little bit further
away.
over.
No, you're right. Tunis. Where is Tunis? Oh, here it is. Oh, Tobruk.
Zoom out. It's right across from Sicily. Where's Sicily? See, it's way over there. There it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's Tunis.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and here's something else that I thought too, is that, okay, so Carthage is here where Tunis is. So
Yeah.
it's across the pond from Rome,
Yes.
right? And we're looking at Sardis, and I was thinking, oh, is that why Sardinia is called Sardinia? Because it's where the Sardinians, the people from Sardis, wound up going. And Sardinia is a weird.
I don't know. I haven't looked at that.
I had oligarch friends when I lived in Italy, and they always used to go holiday on Sardinia. When other oligarchs were going to Capri, these northern Italian oligarchs were going to Sardinia.
Okay, so let's zoom up to northern Italy and where Venice is. Okay,
right.
So
so Venice is controlling this sea here. So Rome and Carthage were battling over
the Tyrrhenian Sea. Tyrrhenian. Why was it called Tyrrhenian? Have you looked at that?
No, you tell me.
I forget. I think I looked at it once and I can't remember.
Is it have something to do with tire?
I don't. I can't.
Okay, so you've got Sardinia named after Sardis. You've got Tyrrhenian Sea named after Tyre. So for people to
we need to do proper research before we start theorizing these things too. But anyway, I want to talk about the Veneti because lots of people ask about Venice.
Yeah,
okay,
I think the Veneti are the Phœnicians.
Yeah. So as Adriatic Veneti had big ships and they controlled the major ports here in ancient times, but it's very, very sketchy information. Very little is known about them, but it's hugely important because this whole area north of the Po River, especially this exact, I'm pointing to it, that's not gonna, the area north of Venice, okay? That was the area that was controlled by the Veneti, and they were obviously allies of Julius Caesar. And it says here, and so they were given their, remember how I made a big deal every time I've on about how the first city that got full Roman citizenship was Cadiz. Well, immediately after Julius Caesar gave Cadiz, which is Phoenician, full Roman citizenship, he gave all these towns that were controlled by the Veneti Roman citizenship. So those were the first two things. Those were both done in 49 before he even finished his war.
That's in Gaul. Gaul?
No.
Oh.
The area north of Venice.
Okay.
Okay. And if you study his 10th Legion, now I didn't even know this till I looked up his decree giving the Cisalpine Gaul full rights of Roman citizenship was called the Lex Roscia, Roscia. And I didn't know this, but when I looked up Les Roscia, it said that the reason he did this is because he recruited the 10th Legion from this area. So I know that his 10th Legion was his most loyal legion, and they were the ones who just did everything for him. And they were from this area controlled by Venice that used to be controlled by the Veneti. Yet there's almost no history. And even some histories of Venice don't even tie Venice to the Adriatic Veneti and pretend that they just appeared sometimes after the Lombards in 500 BC. And they don't even mention the Veneti that were obviously very active in this area. And this was also an area that was had a lot of the pirates, from ancient Roman history in them as well. So, but there's missing history here. And so I want to tie the Veneti to the Phoenicians, and I want to have some basis for doing that. And I need more constructive history than just a giant gaping hole. Although, as Peter says, giant gaping holes in history tell you something. So
right, it's metadata.
But the other thing is all three of the Veneti, there the Adriatic Veneti, and then there's the Armorica Veneti, which were in Brittany, and they were the ones that traded with go up to Brittany. That's yep. That's exactly where the Armorica Veneti were, and this was the Veneti that was also in league with Julius Caesar, who was basically a Phoenician agent. And they are the ones who built his ships. That's how I first discovered the Veneti back a long, long time ago, before I even had a way to tie it. That's how I discovered that, because I was curious, who built Julius Caesar's ships? He was a land, somebody must have built the ships. So it was the Veneti, and then the Veneti threw an important battle. They were supposedly protecting the Celts in the area, and were the naval fleet for the Celts that Julius Caesar was crushing, and they magically lost a battle, even though they had greatly superior ships. So, and then they became and then the third Veneti is the Vistula Veneti, which very, very little is known about, and I just need to get more information about that.
Is that Poland?
Poland, yeah, basically the Baltic Sea and the Vistula and the rivers and bays of the Baltic. They were supposedly Slavic, but it's, I would love to be able to have definite information about the Vistula Veneti. I'm wondering if they were somehow related to the Scandinavians, potentially the Vikings. I don't know. I can't prove anything because I don't have any information. So I'm very interested in the Veneti connection, and I've been looking for Veneti information for 10 years, and I just can't find almost anything solid. So again, huge missing chunks of history here with everything having to do with the Veneti. There's a Veneti.
We should ask my rag at some point.
I found a website called the Venetic Theory on Wikipedia, and it mentions that there's a bunch of these historians, Scandinavian historians, who have theories about them, and they got poo-pawed, and I can't, and they didn't write in English, so I don't know what they were, But again, when you get
here's one of my tells. Okay.
Yeah.
The first sentence, again, this is like an epistemological tell. The first sentence is the Venetic theory, is a pseudo-historical
Yeah.
As soon as Wikipedia calls something pseudo something, I think, oh, this must be true. Okay, because
like it's pseudoscience, yeah.
If you watch this. If I put in NLP, neurolinguistic programming, it says neurolinguistic programming is a pseudoscientific approach. Okay, so as soon as I see Wikipedia and the first sentence says something is pseudo something, I think there's probably something to this.
But all the historians are Slavic, and I can't read their works. So
yeah, but
get LNP to translate their works to
LLMs don't care what language it's in.
I know maybe we can do this.
Here's what we can do. We can go down. We can find all the references. Okay, and then all the books are here. Ding, 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 ding. We'll go find all these books. Okay, they're in
trivial.
This one looks like it's in German.
Yeah.
Let's see. That looks like it's in some Slavic language. Slovenian studies. No, we'll just go grab all these books and we'll put them in the rag.
Okay, we'll put that on our to-do list. Okay, Peter.
Yeah,
we have a long to-do list. Is the problem?
Oh,
okay.
Well,
okay. Let me see.
But here's what's awesome. What's awesome. I've become addicted to doing this kind of research, which is that I find books that I know have somewhere in 10,000 pages there is what I'm looking for. And you can drop it into an LLM, then render it as a rag. And then you can start asking it questions about the books, and it will take you right to the page. Okay.
That could be really interesting. And I know there's somebody else who's been contacting me he's Danish or something like that. He might really be able to help with this. So anyway,
you give me the titles and I'll go get them and put them in here. And
okay, so let's go with let's see what else I have on my list of things to correct. Oh, there's a question of what religion the Sephardic Jews were actually practicing. And I inferred that they were worshiping Phoenician gods. And I think it's way more complicated than that, because I think that you can take almost any religion and you can weaponize it and turn it into a way of brainwashing people and controlling them and somehow working into sacrifice, especially any religion that demands sacrifice. You can have a progression of sacrificing, ending up with human sacrifice. And of course, human sacrifice is the gold standard for the Phoenicians. And there's every reason to believe, one of the reasons I just completely dismiss the Inquisition is if my theory is correct and these people are descended from Phoenicians and they're still practicing human sacrifice at some level, and some of these accusations of blood libel were probably right on. So if the Inquisition was, I'm just not going to even engage. It's fair game. It's like, of course, the Catholic Church would have to do something if there was any evidence of this. I'm not saying the Catholic Church is immune. I'm not saying anybody's good in this thing. But I'm just that when you look at the horrendous harms, just the one, I remember the statistics from last time, 1 million Christians captured into slavery by the Barbary pirates were just, millions more perished in wars funded by these people. The whole idea that they were scared of the unjust Inquisition is complete and utter crap, and I'm just not even going to humor it. But the real thing is, there's no reason to think that what was being practiced by these people was not a weaponized version of Judaism. And there's one thing that has always bothered me. Like, I stay away from attacking people's religion unless they're doing human sacrifice. And then it's like, I'm not going to, I'm going to condemn that because I'm not a complete idiot. But I am very uncomfortable with the chosen people thing, because that is one of the, there's human sacrifice. And then there's this other thing that says you are above the law. The laws don't apply to you. You're special people. You're above other people. You're separate from other people. That's a very unhealthy thing to be telling anybody. I don't think that all Jews are completely disconnected from humanity because they think that they're above everybody, but it's and that's not even the Talmud. That's not even the Talmud. That's in the Old Testament, the chosen. But you can always take phrases from any of these religious books and weaponize them and turning them into something terrible. So I think the whole way of separating the Jews and separating them away from normal people and having their own rituals that are separate from, we're a cult. It's all cult conditioning. It's very unhealthy. And you don't have to be actually murdering babies in order to be unhealthy. That said, I'm not willing to condemn every, I have no doubt that the Catholic Church, of which I am a member, has weaponized the teachings of the Catholic Church to turn people into cult members and to do stupid, thing. I have no doubt about that. So I think it. So, but in general, I don't like to attack religions, but I will attack cults. And so when you take a religion and turn it into a cult, I'm not going to defend any religion as a cult. And I think Mormonism is a great example because I know some great Mormons. I have sweetest people in the world, and there's other aspects of the Mormon church that are absolute cult, very, very unhealthy cult, and very, very Masonic and very unhealthy. And they're actually, a bad influence on my state. So overall, I mean, the cult aspect of Mormonism is bad influence on my state. I am against cults. I am against people setting themselves above all other people in any way, whether it's racial, whether it's class, or whether it's religious divisions. I think we're all humans, and if you don't think you're one of us, then the problem's with you. So okay, so that's my rant about a thing, and then
I just wanted to punctuate what you were saying by reminding people that this statue is put in front of the national. I don't contend this is a Jewish statue.
right.
This statue, I try to stick with Parmenides. This statue exists. You can go to Washington, D.C. right now. You can go to Constitution Avenue to the National Archive. It's on the left side of the front stairs going into the National Archive. And my contention is that this is a Phoenician Tophet cult, as defined by Josephine Quinn, statue, where you've got a hermaphroditic character in the middle here, which is, it's supposedly a woman, but if you look closely at the face, the only thing that kind of makes it feminine is the haircut, and it's got a couple of breasts bolted on. Somebody said the other day, nice rack on that dude. And then legs that look like they're from a NFL football player. And the conceit that I make of this statue is that the baby that's being held in the right arm is the sacrifice, and that once the baby is sacrificed, rendered in the flames, burned to death and rendered down to ash, then the remains of the baby are put into the jar that's being held in the left hand there. This is what Josephine Quinn found in Sardinia, in Carthage, in Malta. So North Africa and the islands in the central Mediterranean, she found these things called Tophet circles, where they had the remains of infants buried in jars that looked just like this jar, with something called a stele on the top, which is basically a Costco receipt that says, for this infant that we sacrificed to you, Baal, we expect a good harvest. We expect a good return on investment. We a good voyage. So and Josephine Quinn, she deciphered like 700 of these things, and they're all basically shopping receipts.
I don't even I see that, but I don't even think that's the real purpose of human sacrifice. I think it's the real purpose is cult conditioning. I think the real purpose is making people think that they are above us, Goyim, or whatever, that they have the power of life and death over us. They're the special people. And this is Phoenician. This is more Phoenician than it is Jewish. I think this is the Phoenician idea that has been imposed on Judaism to some degree, but it's certainly something. But anytime, the whole idea that when you think about the wars they funded, the millions and millions of people who died and suffered and lost their property at the hands of these horrible people, if you can call them people, because they're above the people, right? Then you have to break people's unwillingness to harm other people and to treat other people like cattle. And you have to create that mindset, and human sacrifice does that, and it's cult conditioning. And that I don't even think it's worshiping gods or making sacrifice to gods. I think it's it's 90% cult conditioning,
right? Because if you can sacrifice an infant, you can you can warp people. It's trauma-based mind control at the end.
Yeah, it's horrible. Okay, but okay, so I think that might be. Did I have something we could show where
You sent me.
more genetic evidence of the pilgrims? I just thought that was important. Yeah.
Is that the images that you sent me?
Yeah, I think the very first one.
Okay,
we
well,
don't have to go into too much detail, but
the very first one is right here.
No. Before then, it was the it has something to do with
Hang on, I might have. Yeah, I think I found it. Hang on, I just got to add it. But maybe we should stop and answer a question or two.
Okay, we could do that. This, I was just going to prove more what I brought up before, which I didn't know. I knew that the city of London controlled the pilgrims, but I didn't know that so many of the pilgrims were. No. Try the one right after that, or I don't know. Okay, we're not finding it. Anyway, but it just basically said there's DNA studies that prove that the
Is it the Gans family?
No, maybe I didn't send it to you, or maybe I sent it to you yesterday or something, or maybe I screwed up. Anyway, but basically it is a abstract from a DNA study on the pilgrims that asserts that many of the pilgrims on the Mayflower were Sephardic Jews. And then when you go through the list I have, when I went all the signers of the Mayflower contract, a whole bunch of them were either really prosperous. Brewster was directly involved with the secretary of Queen Elizabeth. He was the assistant to the secretary of Queen Elizabeth. So very, very high up. Numerous were actually officers of the Merchant and Ventures, which was the corporation that was founded to do the Mayflower, and it was a little bit of a disastrous expedition. But a whole bunch of the people who were on the Mayflower had Sephardic Jewish. Or Sephardic, I'm going to call it Sephardic, because at that point they were identifying as Protestants, and a lot of them had servants. The ones that weren't Sephardic Jews were the servants of them. They went on the Mayflower with their wife and 2 kids and 3 servants.
Right.
So these were very prosperous people, even before they crossed over. So anyway, I didn't know that there was DNA studies of this. So I kind of knew it. It didn't surprise me, but we need to go back to, our heroes, our American heroes, the Protestant nonconformists who were going to America for religious liberty were Sephardim. So, and they were there to get all the best land and to lay the foundation and claim everything and turn everything into Francis Bacon's, because of course, Francis Bacon was one of the ones who wrote the charter of 1609 that basically gave all of North America to the Virginia Company. He was very active in the Virginia Company, and he had this vision for the new homeland of the Sephardim, is what it was. So,
yeah, I was watching James Corbett yesterday, and he had a guy on. I was a little disappointed because I'm spoiled by Robert Frederick. Robert Frederick has done an exemplary job on Francis Bacon and really kind of has opened my eyes to a lot of things. And so I was a little disappointed because I thought I would find out something new. And I did find out one tidbit, and I haven't been able to fact check this and follow it up, that James Corbett just kind of dropped as an aside, which is that Francis Bacon didn't really die when he died. He actually just moved to America, which makes complete sense to me. It makes total when you start looking at things like the Newport Tower. Are you familiar with the Newport Tower? My friend Pat Moyce turned me on to it. There's this Freemasonic astro one of these things like Stonehenge, where it's built out of stone, but it's basically an astral clock, so that on the equinoxes that certain things line up, and on the solstices other things line up, and it's just a way of telling time. And it was built in Newport, Rhode Island, and people thought it was a lighthouse for years, but it turns out that it's like a 350-year-old or 500-year-old kind of Freemason compass device that was built.
I probably need to look into this, but yeah, it's
they have a whole website. The guy who runs it has a museum. I think Jim Inc. I can't remember what his name is.
Okay. I think
anyway, let's answer questions.
Yeah. Okay. The really important takeaway, though, is the Phoenicians were the original settlers of North America, and they believe that they own this, and they believe that they've owned this place. So the Phoenicians who are running the United States right now and who've always run it, they believe they have a complete sense of entitlement. This is their land. They settled it. They founded it. They surveyed it. It's theirs.
And that maps directly to something that George Webb was saying 10 years ago on YouTube, was that the reason these people do these things is because they believe this stuff is theirs, which is my contention for why the Palisades got burned down.
Yeah, it's theirs. They can do whatever they want with it.
It was theirs, and they didn't.
We are tenants on their property.
Yeah, exactly. So,
okay. So that's the mentality of the people who run the country, and that's the mentality of the people who put up the child sacrifice thing. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So, Adrian Ward, this is kind of a weird question. I was looking at the Amazon Kindle excerpt from the Grandies. It seems like a very friendly description of the Grand families and their history. I haven't purchased it yet. Just read a couple of sections previewed. Are there books describing their bad behavior? So, yeah.
No, I've read it. Okay. It's written by a very patriotic Jewish, probably Sephardic Jew, right? He 100% justifies everything they do. And yet, when you read it, knowing who the Sephardim are, it is very revealing. He excuses everything. He prints everything in the best possible light. But for example, I'm gonna read you. This is an example of several things that really stood out to me. Okay, he's complaining on page 27. He says he's talking about the brothels that were located in the Jewish quarters of these towns. He's complaining about how badly abused the Jews were in Spain, and so there was brothels in the Jewish quarter, and he says they were billeted in Jewish quarters, and houses of prostitutions were placed there in an attempt to break down Jewish family life. To kill or rape a Jewish child was considered no crime. What that means is they had brothels in the Jewish quarters with Jewish children prostitutes. And when they were killed, it was no crime. Now, you can either say that that's because those Christians, those bad Christians who hated the Jews and accused them of blood libel, we're going into the Jewish quarter, raping and killing Jewish children, or you can say it was no crime to rape and kill a Jewish child in the Jewish quarters. So, if you read the whole book, knowing that these people are Phoenicians and everything they say is backwards, and they minimize, they talk about the way they did the the slave trade, but they said, oh yeah, but everybody was doing it. Nobody considered it a bad thing back then. No big deal. There's
you have to ask the slaves.
Yeah, there's a part where they're talking about a guy who left his wife, or then he wrote to his father-in-law and said, hug and kiss and love my wife for me as if you were her husband, right? I mean, you know, I read that and I go, ugh, you know, that's sick. So, you know, and then there's the arrogance, you know, there's just this Phoenician arrogance that I talked about. They feel completely entitled to everything. So I read it and I just got a lot of good information out of it, but they're not, but if you had a large language manual talking about it, you would learn all about how badly these poor people suffered in the Inquisition. There was other stuff, like one of the, who was that family, the fur trading family, the Abbotts, not the Abbotts. I forget the richest guy in America. Astor, right. So the founder of the Astors fortune happened to come and live with one, you know, he was not Jewish, but he came and lived with one of these founding Jewish Sephardic families. Oh, and here's another thing. I just opened a thing and read this. When they talked about how the Sephardim were connected to some of the German families, because it says the family name Siexus, which is a Sephardim name, was translated to Sachs, as in Goldman Sachs, the banking family,
as in Jeffrey Sachs.
And also they were also related to the Saxe-Coburn family, which is the British royal family. So, you know, and that's the great matriarch is the one who spilled the beans on that. So all of these books have to be read, and you're not looking for disclosures, because nobody discloses anything. You're reading between the lines, and when you read between the lines, you see a ton of everything.
I think that if I might say, I think that most of the information that you're going to get is from books that are written by the people that you're investigating, because for whatever reason, a lot of it is ego. I mean, Carol Quigley, when he wrote Tragedy and Hope and he published Tragedy and Hope, he said that he only disagreed with the oligarchy on one thing, which is that they kept it a secret. He was completely okay with what they were doing. And so when he wrote Tragedy and Hope, he thought that he was doing everybody a favor by showing everyone how brilliant these people were in manipulating all of us and killing hundreds of millions of us.
Yeah, reading all history has to be read. The truth has to be read through the lines, because you're never going to get anybody to admit to any of this stuff. So
yeah, I'm reading a book on. I'm reading a book right now that's on ontology and epistemology, and I'm going to mess it up if I try it, because I was listening to it right before I got on the show today. But there's definitely different ways that historians approach history. And if you're looking for a book that just tells you the way it happened, well, you can wait for my book. Okay. Where I try to do that, but I'm not saying, oh, these people are bad people. Okay. Because it's tough, but let's answer some more questions. So I think that I know what my answer to this question is, but Svarberg, who always asks good questions, said maybe all religions are cults created for control. Well, and I'll just throw this out here and then I'll throw it to you, is that one of the things I was talking to Matthew Crawford about a couple of days ago, and I've had this thesis for a while, that when you become a 33rd degree Mason, you've achieved all of the information that you need, all of the skills that you need in order to create your own religion. So if you look at people like L. Ron Hubbard or Aleister Crowley or Joseph Smith, then you've gotten to the point in the Masonic organization where you've learned all of the field manual for manipulating people on a mass level. And so, you know, my conceit is that when you you know, the United States, I don't know about other countries, but the United States is, you were talking earlier about how any religion can get co-opted. How many Christian cults are there in the United States of America? Thousands, right? There are thousands of Christian cults in the United States of America. So I'm not sure that all religions are cults. The spoiler alert, the conceit of my book is that there was this guy in Galilee named Jesus, and he was explaining how to not be in a cult.
Yeah.
That, like, if you read the,
it worked like a charm.
If you read it, well, again, what happened after he died, he's not really responsible for. But if you read Matthew and John, and who were guys in the room, and you read what he was saying in the context of the language that it was written in, which was written, he spoke Aramaic written down in Greek. If you understand the context of the Greek words, he was basically explaining to people how to not be in a cult.
There's a lot. Religions are very different. Some are, and Christianity is quite unique in a lot of ways in terms of its emphasis more on moral teachings and beliefs than on having to do things. Like, it's very, very easy to be a Muslim. You know, there's a checkbox. All you have to do. It's very, very simple. And it's, I think that the teachings of some religions, and not just Christianity. I mean, there's some very, very compelling teachings of some of the Eastern religions too, but I don't really want to go into that. So the trouble you have is a lot of the religions have a lot of truth in them. Okay, I think some of them are just weird and way out there.
They wouldn't be effective if they didn't have some truth in them.
Well, no, like I have a hard time with Mormonism, like I said, because like I said, I know wonderful Mormons, but who basically are trying to be good Christians, you know, and they get very offended when you say that Mormonism isn't Christianity, because they think it is. But there's cults are very dangerous, and they're very unhealthy. And one of the ways that you create a cult is that you have some truths that you use to draw people into it, and so truth can be weaponized to become a thing that can be made into a cult. And I, you know, I've had my own experience. I tend to not attack people's religions because unless they're cult, you know, leaders. If they're cult leaders, I will, you know, attack them. But I'm not going to attack any particular. You know, the problem is not believing true things. You know, I'd say 95% of the Catholic moral teachings are completely true, and the other 5, at least, you know, you can sort of excuse. But it doesn't mean that nobody can take those truths and use them in unhealthy ways. And I think, you know, so I think there, you know, like I said, I have issues with certain religions. I don't like the chosen people aspect of Judaism, and I don't like the cult Freemason aspect of Mormonism. But I don't think that the religions are cults. I think they're belief systems that can be weaponized.
All right, let me. I'm trying to get prepared here. I'm going to skip to Tori Alexander. She's got a great question. She goes, "Are there other statues that have a similar theme?" So I was trying to find better pictures of this, but if you go to the pictures that are attached to the last live stream that we did on Substack, this is the pediment of the Mellon Auditorium. And again, this is supposedly, if you ask a docent, the a rendering of the goddess Columbia, the patron goddess of the United States of America. Well, again, Columbia looks like she plays for the New York Giants, and has her arms around this boy. Which, man, you made my head spin last time, Mrs. Heritage History. I didn't actually share this with you, but when you looked at that fig leaf and said, "Oh, he's castrated," I thought, yeah, oh, that's what they tell us in high school. They tell us that the Greeks rendered all of the genitals, and then the Romans were offended by it, and so they covered everything up with fig leaves. And I was thinking, no, maybe that just indicates that they cut it off. Which is the golly, right?
Yeah, the castrated men serving the mother goddess is a big thing. There's numerous versions of this.
Yeah, and sometimes they call it the Gnostic. They call it the Gnostic Pieta, or the Madonna, where you've got a mother and a child. Only it looks like a small boy. There's a similar pair of figures on the United States, the pediment of the United States Justice Department. Only he's holding an apple. Now, I don't have a tight shot ready for the show today, but he's holding a caduceus there in his left hand. He's holding what looks like a dildo with wings, which actually, if you believe what Ammon Hillman talks about, it may actually be a dildo with wings that he's holding there. So
I cannot, in my studies, I cannot avoid learning a lot about this cult symbolism.
Right.
But I have learned so much at this point that it has a very negative effect on my ability to appreciate a great deal of art. And it's kind of sad. I hate that they steal, they take good concepts and they steal them, and they pervert them.
George Orwell said all art is propaganda. And and the Muslims, graven images is in the 10 Commandments, I think.
But it's when you know enough symbols and you see that they put their symbols everywhere, it kind of wrecks stuff that it would be innocent if you didn't know it. So I kind of avert my eyes to learning even more symbolism. But because I do the studying I do, I just can't help but recognize a whole bunch of this garbage symbolism. It's everywhere, everywhere. And they love symbolism, and they have millions of different symbols.
Yeah,
they've got symbolic colors, they've got symbolic animals, they've got symbolic gods, they've got symbolic numbers, they've got symbolic symbols. It's a lot of the meanings of some of these symbols don't have to be corrupt and horrible, but they tend to use symbolism so much that they corrupt what should be. I don't think there's any way to think that a football player with boobs is an innocent symbol, but there's other things that should be innocent that are not, if you know what the symbolism is. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, I'm looking for a picture here, so I'll just talk to it. I think the Statue of Liberty is actually Addis, who is again a
another football player with boobs.
No, Addis is actually a castrated shepherd who is the love object of the goddess Cybele. Okay, so it's the exact same relationship here. Okay, but they put a robe on it, and they but what the tell is the rays coming out of the head. And I did research on the artist who did it, and he was going to put a Phrygian cap on it, but he couldn't figure out how to fit the Phrygian cap underneath the spikes and make it a what do you call it? A observation deck on the top of the Statue of Liberty. So I think the Statue of Liberty is the statue of Addis. I think that who's a castrated shepherd. And then the question is, why do they tell us that it means liberty? And to me, liberty is a wink, because freedom is what people fight for, and liberty is what they get delivered. Liberty is the length of the chain that you're allowed to have. If you're a slave, liberty is the length of your chain. It's the best way to think of the word liberty. And it's bestowed on you by somebody who has more power over you.
Okay, I'm going to say one more thing about symbolism, and it's kind of been brought up before, but it's so huge. If you want to see a symbol everywhere, and once you see what it is that they are fundamentally a pederastic sodomite cult, because this is the men, the women are raped and abused as well, but sodomy is their big thing. So their symbol as an anus is everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And it's basically a circle with a serrated edge. And what you have a whole thing about this. One of the things I found was you had a whole video about circle with a star in it. Right. And of course the star is the of
course, this is the way that kids in 6th grade draw an anus, right? They draw a circle and then they make a little star.
Right. Yeah. And there's all sorts of variants, but look at every seal of every department in the United States. For example, every seal of the Rotarian is a big one. The Jesuits, it's just everywhere. I'm not even going to go over them, but that's a good example of, and that's just one symbol, but it's a really important one. So when you start seeing anuses in all of their symbols, it's just this ocean of anuses everywhere. So sorry about that. I didn't do it. They did.
You're right. Okay? Right. And it makes it hard to look at everything, right?
It makes it hard to look at everything. And that's I brought that up because they don't have that in the religious stuff. It's like, what really bugs me is when they have beautiful religious painting with some sort of symbol in it that makes me puke. Okay. So
yeah, I'm looking for here, let me just bring this up. You've got a circle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the blue and white part is the butthole.
Yeah.
Right. And less obvious here. Let me see how many more I've got, but I think this.
Well, I was
here's Nancy Reagan on top of the seal.
The FBI seal, the CIA seal, the Secretary of State seal. Yeah, right. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, and so here's Addis. This is in a Mithraeum outside of Rome, and here's Addis, the castrated. Nobody really knows what this head is. He's got his left elbow on a head, so somebody's head has been removed. Maybe that's John the Baptist's head. Who knows? Don't know. But he's had his he's cut his own testicles off, and he bleeds to death because of that, and then is rewarded with eternity by Cybele by turning him into a pine tree. So then you always have to wonder why we put pine trees up in our living rooms in December and hang balls on them.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's bad. Like I said, once you see the symbols, you don't want to know. Okay, let's move on to a question that is going to make people's life worse.
Okay, here we go. And I'll get rid of this. And so Svartberg asks, why can't Phoenicians be today's Jews? Some of them are.
Because there's many Phoenicians who do not identify as Jews. I just talked about the Mayflower Fathers. They were nonconformist Christians, the Calvinists. The even more so than Lutherans, the Calvinists at the end of the Cromwells, the Puritans, the what's his name? John Knox up in Scotland. They really, a lot of the Sephardim who are Phoenicians, adopted that identity as Protestant Christians. And I've heard, although I haven't looked into this, but I've heard that the Quakers are pretty culty as well. So
one of the things that you and I talked about that I don't think people understand, you just mentioned it, and I wanted to follow up on that, is the difference between pedophilia and pederasty. Okay, because there's a power component in there, that ties into this kind of a dynamic.
The only reason I don't want to talk about pederasty too much today is because it needs its own program. It's so huge. The power dynamic of pederasty is absolutely fundamental in it. It's very Phoenician and it goes through all of this. And once you see it everywhere, just like the symbols.
Right.
It's very, very much they recruit these young men as boys, right. And they have relationships with them and start controlling them at a very, very vulnerable age, and pervert their whole way of life. And so much of what we see as modern homosexuality is a result of early sexual abuse.
Right.
And when you see these intergenerational power relationships, I think it was even more predominant when you think about it. For the Middle Ages, the way that you could have, if women got pregnant, so if you wanted to have rampant sex at will, you had to look for other outlets than women, and that's just one aspect to it. It's a power relationship, and it's very, very important. But pederasty is they're both baked in the cake with the Phoenician brain. It's very important to cult conditioning. The sexual abuse of young people is very, very important to cult conditioning.
All right. Thank you. I don't know if I've got this. I'm trying to figure out my interface here. Okay, I got rid of that, and I'm gonna Xanadu. I think I already know the answer to this question, but Xanadu Zimba says, "Are you familiar with the Curse of Canaan?" I think that's where we started.
I love Eustace Mullins. I've read everything that he has written. He's a great researcher, but you know what? If you read his books in the order, I didn't read the books in the order he wrote them. But if you read the books in the order you wrote them, you find that he's learning more and more as he goes along. He wrote The Curse of Canaan pretty late. And I didn't think it was well written, because it was almost like he never got the final edit done, and he just kind of jumps around and he has tons of information thrown at you without really organizing it all that well. But yeah, I'm very familiar with The Curse of Canaan. The interesting thing is, when I first read this, which was probably 14 years ago, I didn't finish it all the way because I just didn't like where it was going, and I wanted to read something. I wasn't ready for his thesis at that time, when I first read it. And then I came to my own conclusions, and then I went back and read it and said, oh my God, he did the same thing I did, which was when you start going down secret societies, you think it's all about money and power, and it makes sense to you, and you can't believe that these people are actually Canaanites and Phoenicians. I mean, he uses the word Canaan. I use Phoenician. I use Phoenician because they're more identifiable as a trading cult than all the other Canaanites. And also, I think they were kind of the aristocracy of the Canaanites. But but you can see him coming to these same conclusions. And yes, I just don't think it's a really well-written book, and he wrote it late in his research, and it ties a whole bunch of stuff together. The other thing that he does is I don't base a lot of my analysis on scriptures and the book of Enoch and all this sort of stuff, because I don't know. I'm history based. And so I don't I don't accept anything that's written in any sacred book as objective truth. I like I said, I explained to somebody when I accept the historical parts of the Bible as good history as we have anywhere, because you can always say it's not legitimate history. You can say that about anything. I have to work with material that's there, but there's so much interpretation that goes into these scriptures, and they're very much used as religious texts instead of history texts, and so I don't really go down the path too much of drawing my conclusions from biblical texts. I use the Bible as a data point, but I don't go, oh, it's all explained in the book of Enoch, and these are all the demons mating with they might be. I'm not going to deny it, but I'm not selling that right now.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I explain this, and I had to break this down for myself and in order to write it in my book, and that is that on an epistemological level, there's three different ways that I look at things. One is there's what happened, right? I call that level one. And then there's what people wrote down about what happened. And then that's level two. And level three is how people who are in power use the stories that have been written down in order to affect the beliefs of groups of people. Like, that's the epistemological level. So when you look at the book of Enoch, the question isn't whether or not it's true. The question is, how is that being used in order to steer this group of people in this direction instead of that direction? That's kind of
right.
That's the way that I look at it.
It's the same thing, the point we made, where you can use the truths of the faith and you can use that to draw people into your cult and then try and control them. It doesn't mean that truths aren't true.
Right. And it all, but the tell is whether or not you have to give up something of yourself, whether it's money or compromise or whatever it is, in order to get the secret knowledge. You know, there's always a curtain, right? Yeah. You have to do this. You have to behave a certain way,
and there's levels and levels and levels.
Right.
There's 15 levels or 33 levels of secret knowledge.
That's the Phoenician tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And they surround themselves by innocent people because they love to have innocent people. It's like the terrorists who put their headquarters in a hospital, or a school. Just come and get me here. Just kill all these children and you can get me. Right. Yeah, I don't. They're bad people. Okay.
So Xanadu has another question. This is something I'm interested in this because he says any linkage of Carthage with the kingdom of Swabia. I didn't know there was a kingdom of Swabia in Sicily.
I mean, there's certainly a link between Carthage and Phoenicia and Sicily. And I don't think the Phoenicians have been in Sicily for thousands of years.
Well, here's what's weird to me is that I tried to write a book about Erwin Rommel once, about 25 years ago. And I quit. After I read about 20 books on Erwin Rommel, I decided I didn't want to write a book about him because I didn't like him. I didn't want to write a movie screenplay about him because I didn't like him. Okay, as a person. Because I thought he was just he was a smug opportunist. But the the thing that's interesting to me is that one of the things about Rommel that the German general staff didn't like is that he was Schwabian. He was from the area around Munich, which in Germany is called Swabia.
Right. That's what was confusing me, because I'm going, Swabia and Sicily? I thought Swabia was, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this and I'm going, wait, there's a Swabia in Sicily? So now I have to go. Now what I have to go do is I have to go research whether or not there's a connection between Swabia and Germany.
There's certainly a long history of Phoenicians in Sicily, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the
and there's
mafia, the Costa Nostra is Sicilian. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's it seems obvious to me. And if you look at how the mafia is organized, it's all just another cult,
right?
A very, very criminal, overtly criminal cult.
But again, ontologically, if you look at the way that it's organized, if you look at the way that they, if you want to be a made man, you have to go do something in order to give them compromise so that they can.
Yep. You have to kill somebody.
You have to go kill
human
somebody.
Sacrifice. Yeah.
Right. You have to go do a human sacrifice in order to prove to them that you have the stuff.
It's the hallmark, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Sicilian mafia kills somebody and then you can be in the club. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, break it down to its pieces. Does the club that you want to become a member of require you to go kill another human being in order to become a member of that club? That's a tell. That's the ontological tell, right? And you could say these people do it, these people do it, these people do it.
But it's also important to distinguish that these people have minions, and the minions don't all know. All the minions don't kill people. They think that their leaders are good, and they have the insiders. To be an insider, you need to do horrible things. To be a useful idiot, you can just be a useful idiot. So, or blackmailed with things that don't involve killing people.
Right.
So
this is an article that I found on, when I was researching Horatio Alger, but he's got all of these stories about young boys who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. And in Silicon Valley, they love this term, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. If you think about it, when you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps because you're wearing your boots when you pull them. Okay. But what you are doing is bending over.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and this, we need a whole session on pederasty at some point, but I just, need to take a break before facing up for it.
Hal 1984 wants to know what we think of Switzerland. I haven't gone there yet. So what do you
Geneva, clearly Geneva is, clearly the Switzerland is a very dubious place. There's especially a couple of the cities, Geneva and Bern, I think, are maybe the worst. Basel, yeah.
Basel's right on the border of Germany. And if you want to understand how the Germans completely looted Europe, Eastern and Western Europe during World War II, and then took all their loot and stored it in Switzerland, primarily the Bank of International Settlements, all you have to do is look at the geography of where it is. Here, let me pull that up. Because Basel,
I think what Switzerland is, it is the source of the Rhine, the source of the Rhone, and I don't think it's the source of the Danube, but I'm pretty sure it's the source of a couple rivers flowing into the Danube. So that tells you that it is a very, very central high spot. It's like because of its rivers and its, the way the Alps divides and other forests divide Europe, it's just strategically a high point. And that is, so I the
I don't think I realized
I have more data on Switzerland, but I don't have it at the tip of my. I'd have to research it. But I know that I'm afraid of talking off the top of my hat about nonsense going on in Switzerland. But it's also the source of, like these banking families. There's numerous banking families that are centered in Switzerland. Also, Luxembourg and Liechtenstein are also very, very suspicious.
Yeah.
So they're basic private, all these little tiny countries that are their own kingdoms
that make most of their money off banking.
that make all their money off banking. That's a sign. That's a sign.
Right. If you have a country and it's making most of its money off
banking.
But
I think Switzerland is more than just banking. I think it's strategic. It's a strategic location for almost anything.
Yeah, I mean Basel especially because it's on the border of Germany and Switzerland and France, all three of them. So, if you're trying to get money or loot out of France or Germany, it's a great place.
I think that so the Pilgrim Society is how related to the original Pilgrim families is it, or is it just a Anglo-American thing that anybody can be part of? Is there a hereditary aspect
I think
to
it's
it?
hereditary. I think you've got to be invited into the Pilgrim Society, and I think that you have to be like related to the founders of the United States of America or I don't know what you have to do on the British side, but it was started, I think, as a part of the Rhodes Trust. When Cecil Rhodes, wrote his famous 7 wills, and they wanted to reintegrate the United States of America back into the British Empire, then the Pilgrim Society was founded, and it became the vessel by which the Rhodes Trust wound up rewriting through the Rhodes Scholarships, rewrote all of the American history books, and
I am more suspicious of the intelligence agencies than I am of these, like there are these Bilderberg societies and the CFR and stuff like that, and Pilgrim Society. It's like these are sort of the visible things where you've got all the millionaires getting together, and I think that's just not. They're obviously noxious, and they're actually obviously planning bad things. But I think it's the intelligence agencies that are more secret and less known that are really kind of the movers of these things. So I don't really, I do not have a great deal of knowledge about the American Pilgrim Society. I know a lot more about the Society of the Cincinnati, which is a what do you call it? Aristocratical society. And I think it and the Cosmos clubs and stuff like that. It's not the ones that are as visible that I worry about. Whenever I see anything visible, I go, okay, what is this hiding? So what is the real secret society that this is a cover for? For example, I will give you an example, because the Sons of the American Revolution and the Daughters of the American Revolution, those are the outer-facing, innocent, patriotic groups that are sort of a front for the Society of the Cincinnati, which is the hidden one, which is the real one. So they have a Sons of American Revolution conference over here, and they invite people who aren't in the club, and then the people who are in the club, have their own private meetings. So that, I don't know what in particular the American Pilgrim Society does that you are suspicious of it doing, other than, having all the wrong people in it.
Well,
But
I think it's a cover. I mean, famously, I think Tucker Carlson is in the Pilgrim Society, or at least he attended one Pilgrim Society dinner in 2009 where he was listed as a member. Okay, that's
right. But the real problem with him is he's almost certainly CIA, and the whole CIA is not just the CIA, but they never have one target. They split themselves all up into 5 different.
and I would be more specific. I would say he's certainly handled by the CIA, because I think that I look at certain people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, and A, they're really, really good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. B, I think that they really believe what they're saying.
Oh, I don't.
Okay.
None of these people believes what they're saying. That's just absolutely not true. Okay. Unless they have a split
you and I
personality.
can disagree. You and I can disagree. I grew up in Hollywood. I understand acting. Okay.
Yeah.
I look at people like Sharon Stone, who I knew in personal life, and then I see her on-screen persona. And I can tell you, somebody sent me a video of her the other day that she just did a couple of weeks or months ago. And in my assessment of her, knowing what she's like in real life and then knowing what she's like when she's on screen, I can tell you when she's in a movie like Basic Instinct or Casino, she's not acting in those movies. Okay, that's who she is. But when I see her in an interview, she's acting. Okay, when she's doing her facial expressions and she's doing all the stuff, she's acting in that. So when I
thought you just said this was all kayfabe and it was all
kayfabe,
kayfabe, right?
Right, but I think that there's levels to this, and I think that there are certain people who are being handled. Okay,
right, but I don't believe anybody who is a big leading influencer with 1 million followers. Any of them. I don't think anything that any of them say is sincere. I think that they have roles that they play and they need to get into the role. And so by getting into the role, they adopt all of the opinions and sentiments and everything. I think it's getting into the role. And sometimes if you've been in the role, if you've got if you're playing a real human being and you have you're a Supreme Court judge or a leader of some type thing where you have to be predictable and you have to fit into the ideological spectrum, it gets very, very comfortable and you just get into your public role and you just spout off because you're so. But in terms of what they actually believe, I don't think they believe anything. I don't believe they're not Jews, they're not Christians, they're not Protestants, they're not, they're fake. They're not Democrats, they're not Republicans, they're not conservatives. They're fake. They're just playing roles. I mean, this is why I kind of don't participate in national politics much, because I feel like everybody's just acting. So I don't watch movies. So I want to go read a book, because I want something of substance.
You and I are allowed to disagree on this.
Okay.
Again,
I'm fine with that.
I think that they're handled, and I think that they're earnest and they're sincere, and they're wrong. Okay, for a lot of different reasons. But primarily the problem that I see with Tucker and Candace is that they stop at Israel and then they don't push on to the city of London.
That's not suspicious at all.
That's not.
What? This is another reason. So along with thinking everybody's fake, I see Israel as a puppet state.
100%, like the United States.
So, and I see the United States as I see every Freemason republic as a puppet state. And I believe the people behind them are the intelligence agencies. I mean, not, because I think the intelligence agencies are the masterminds. And it's like, I'm not just going to say Mossad and CIA and M16, but that network, the intelligence network,
Well,
And
I just think that
and,
the hand.
and what do you do when you're an intelligence spy? Is what you do is you assume a role that you're not in order to get information and to infiltrate things. That's what they do. I mean, I think it's like breathing for them. I think
I think it's much easier to get somebody who's completely a true believer and manipulate them into getting you the information or conveying the message that you want them to convey.
I think they're all cynical fakes. I don't think, I mean, but I don't lose sleep over it. I don't get up and go, oh, that Tucker Carlson's lying his head off and get her. You know, I just don't pay attention to them. I don't care what they think.
All right, let's get through these questions.
Okay.
You're not, arguments of logic are not going to solve this. Adrian Ward says, speaking of Eastern religions, I mean, one of us is right and one of us is right and one of us is wrong. And there's no way that we're going to be able to use words in order to determine that here. So anyway, Adrian Ward says, speaking of Eastern religions, what do you think of reincarnation, evolution of the soul? I don't know. It's kind of a big subject.
I don't know if I have an opinion that matters on this because I am very happy that there's a lot of ideas that are being discussed openly now that just weren't being discussed. And I don't, since the discussion of all this stuff started to really opened up recently, and I'm old, I can't evaluate these things about reincarnation and evolution of the soul. I've heard these theories, and I'm not going to shut them down, and I'm not going to say stop talking about this. This is unchristian. No. I don't have any. I can't hear you in me. I want to listen, but I'm not going to be able to have an intelligent opinion about this. I don't know what happens after you die, but I'm not particularly afraid to die.
Right.
So I'm afraid to live in fear. I refuse to live in fear, and I pray for my children and grandchildren.
Right.
And I'm afraid of electronics. I hate the surveillance state. That's what I'm, that's what I'm afraid of. But I'm glad, I'm very open to listening to what Eastern, chakras and all that sort of stuff. I'm open to listening with whatever time I have to listen to it. I don't have an opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is formed by this book called Vendetta in the Light of Christian Wisdom, written by Wolfgang Smith. And he was probably one of the smartest people who ever lived. B, he studied the Vedas for most of his life. He went and he lived in India for a while, and then he married a Catholic woman, and he became a Catholic. And the big aha moment for me in this book and in the videos, which I think that if you scroll to the bottom here, I don't know if vertical causality is it, but you can find videos of him talking about this book. Is that in his assessment, he spent decades of his life in India and studying with the Vedas, and the conclusion that he came to was what he calls the eschaton, which is what is the end state of the religion? What is the end state of Christianity? What is the end state of the Vedas? And they're the opposite. And so this is why when you hear theosophists, talking about at the UN, Alice Bailey and her ilk talking about, or Rudolf Steiner, talking about, theosophy and how all of the religions or Joseph Campbell need to come together, and that they have this, because they're all saying the same thing in different ways. They're not. Fundamentally, Christianity is the opposite of all the other religions, which says that in the Eastern religions, when you reach nirvana, the point that you get to is the destruction of the self. And in Christianity, it's the opposite of that. It's about the perfection of the self. Christianity says that we're all born fallen and that we all have something to work on, and that we need to figure out a way to make whatever it is, whatever the state that we're in, better. That was it. And the way that the Eastern religions think about it is that when you reach nirvana, you become part of the one, like a drop dissolving into the ocean. That's the opposite eschaton.
This is very somewhat like, this is your description of what he says is almost exactly what Chesterton says. And he says it very, very well. I think Everlasting Man and also Orthodoxy he covers these things. I love those books. I think they're beautiful books. I think my problem is that I definitely believe that the cosmology of what we're taught by science is wrong.
So does Wolfgang Smith, and he knows.
Yes. And so I believe there's a soul, and the soul's joined to the body in a certain way, and the soul is real. And somebody says, you don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. And that's what I believe. So I don't know what happens to the soul when it is no longer connected to the body. But I don't think it vaporizes. I
think we're here by accident.
Yeah. And I'm open to whatever. I'm working on my soul, and I'm trying to get my soul in good shape so that when I die, it'll be in good shape. And that's what both reincarnation and Christianity tell you to do, is work on your soul, do your soul exercises. And that's what I try and do. And whatever happens is going to happen when I die. So
Carrie Shaw says, is there a difference between, quote unquote, the Jews of Ford's International Jews and the Phoenicians? Sorry, late in today.
I kind of went over this. I think that we talked mostly about the Sephardim and not the Ashkenazi. I think that Ford makes the point that most Jews are not crazed sociopath power mongers, but some are, and he calls the ones that are international Jews. And I have come to the conclusion that by and large, it's the international, it's the Sephardim that are the international Jews. And I'm going to give you a couple examples, because I've just been kind of, if you look at the Jews' maternal line, so just a couple of these.
Didn't you give me some slides for that?
I don't know, but I'm just going to try and be quick. Oh, okay. So like for the Rothschild, I tried really hard to trace the Rothschilds back to the Sephardim. Okay. And there's a whole bunch. Where do I have the list of where do I have the list? The ones that you can definitely, so I trace them back to this Weil line. Okay. And the Weil line is super, super important. It is rabbinic rather than merchant, but some of these rabbi families are super, super wealthy and super powerful. But the rabbi families tend to be I brought up another one last time who was related to the Juan Polanco. He comes from a rabbinical family. Well, the rabbinical family that's attached to the Rothschilds is the Weil family. And they're very, very famous and go way back. And this AI says that, yes, there is a connection that traces the original founder back to Spain. And the name Weil is theorized to be a location in Spain. Now, going forward, I've traced many of the Germanic Jew families who are called Ashkenazi to this Weil family, which is continually intermarries in the maternal line to keep the maternal line good here. So the Rothschilds supposedly, both the mother and father and the mayor and what's her name? She has a really weird name. What is it? Goodall. Yeah, Goodall and Meyer both trace their names back to the Weil lineage. So does the Guggenheims. So does the the Guggenheims definitely married into the Weil line. So did the Warburgs. So did the I had a whole list of them.
Did you send it to me?
I think it's on. I know where it is. Hold on.
Is this it?
No, it's just I listed them in my message. Oppenheimer, Rothschild, Warburg, Guggenheim, Bamberger, Spires are all connected to the Weil family, the Weil rabbinic family. So anyway, so that proves that there's a ton of money and power just in this one rabbinic family. But I think if you're looking for really dubious Jewish families that are into global finance and all this stuff, they really tend to be Sephardic, or at least have some Sephardics. I just identified this is something I didn't know, and then I looked him up. Chaim Salomon, who basically funded the American Civil War, the American Revolutionary War. He was the primary funder. He set up all of the
wasn't he conduit with Robert Morris?
Yes, Robert Morris basically worked through him in order to get all the Sephardic traders and merchants to supply the army. And his death is super suspicious, not because I think he was killed, but because he disappeared at a really convenient time. And then the Continental Congress could just repudiate all his loans. And it's just ridiculous. They say he died, we betrayed him. It's all ridiculous. I published something on the Substack. And but anyway, so I think that the international Jews are the Sephardim, not the Ashkenazis, even though like most of these families I listed, Oppenheimer, Rothschild, Warburg, Guggenheim, those are all considered Ashkenazi, even though they originate in Western Germany, and they're all connected through those wheel lines.
Right. And for people who don't know, the Ashkenazis supposedly come from Poland. So if they coming from Western Germany and not Poland, then. But
this Chaim guy came from Poland, but he's from a Sephardim family. He's not from an Ashkenazi family at all, but they've been in Poland for a long time. So there are even there are some Sephardic Jews in Poland running the show over there. So anyway,
Todd says, can you please say more about Bacon, the Virginia company, and what is known about his time in North America? I don't know. I only heard that throwaway line from James Corbett. However, this is the kind of thing that I can go ask my RAG later once I get my RAG rebuilt today, because I have a ton of Bacon stuff that I've collected.
I can say something. Okay. There is a very, very important document that was the Virginia Charter of 1609. Bacon more or less wrote it, or at least wrote important parts of it. It basically, now people say, oh, that was they dissolved the Virginia Company and it doesn't matter anymore. That document basically gave the Virginia Company, which was Bacon's, these were the people who masterminded the British colonization of America. It was Bacon's group. It was the Plymouth Company of Virginia, the Virginia Company of London, and the Plymouth Company of London, and they were all and the document of 1609 basically granted all of the land all the way to the West Coast, from Virginia going directly west along the lower line of Virginia and angling up northwards along the and I wish I had a picture of this. Maybe I'll post the picture on my Substack. But that document that Bacon wrote basically gave all of North America north of the southern border of Virginia to the Virginia Company and their descendants, all in perpetuity. So this is why they have this ownership. They think they have this document that Bacon wrote and the King of London signed off on, that basically gave North America to the Phoenicians.
Yeah.
The Phoenicians, and because none of these or Sephardim, because none of these people were presenting themselves as Jews at this time. They were all presenting themselves as, London merchants. So,
right, and that reminded me of this thing that I told you about the Newport Tower.
Anyway, this is an interesting question. I wish I had more material for it, but just look up the charter of the charter of 1609.
Here's something that I dug up that I wrote a story about, and actually Robert Frederick was pretty excited when I figured it out. Is that John Smith? Was it John Smith, Jamestown?
Yes.
He was a complete creation of the Freemasons. Like he was a nobody. He was one step above a stowaway on the ship coming over. He was like a security guy. He was like a janitor. But
he was a beautiful writer who wrote reams. Even though he was a soldier of fortune, he wrote all these beautiful histories. Right. And makes total sense.
Yeah. So John Smith is like a creation like William Shakespeare of the Virginia Company, in order basically to sell the romance of North America so they could get people to come over and colonize, because they needed to get people to be true believers. There's two ways that you can get people to do things. You can pay them to do it, right? Or you can romance them.
You know what? I want to go back and study because I remember reading his biography, a kind of a shortened version, or his story of his life and everything like that. And he had some really interesting experiences. Now, when I read it 15 or 20 years ago, I didn't have any suspicions. But now I want to go back and find out where he says he was, because I think it was the Ottoman Empire or something like that, which, if he was Sephardim, I'm sorry, they had connections all over the Ottoman Empire. I just have to go back and reread that because I haven't read it in a million years and I'm super rusty on John Smith.
All right. Somebody asked a question and I just accidentally clicked the wrong thing and deleted their question. And I have this part of their question left if Jessica can find it. See texts. So I don't remember what it was, but do you remember what it was about? Here it is. She just put it up. Okay, let me get rid of this. Ordo Purgatorio Flama says, definitely appreciate the approach to biblical texts. Have either of you given consideration to the work of Christopher Sparks has done to correctly translate the original prophetic texts? No, I don't know Christopher Sparks, but I'll write
I don't. I have to make a confession here. I don't know who he is, and I've read the Bible. Absolutely. I went to a Bible study 35 years ago when I was first getting back into it when I had kids, and couldn't care less about Christianity before I had kids, and then it became very important to me. But I avoid, for some reason, I'm fascinated with history. And for some reason, I just can't get into all the religious hokum pokum stuff. I'm not good at it. I'm not strong at it. So I'm weak. And there's all these books, I tried to listen to read a book about ISIS so I could learn all about ISIS because she's super important. And I just can't, I can't stay interested in this stuff. I don't care if she married her brother. I'm not into Bible, the details. I haven't even read, I have true confessions. I have not even read or looked at the book of what's that one they keep saying? I brought it up earlier.
Enoch.
Enoch. I haven't even read the book of Enoch.
Well, Enoch's not.
I couldn't care less.
He's extra canonical. He's not in the Bible.
I know, but I'm not really into digging all the deep things out of the Bible. I had to be drugged into finding Sepharads by Peter, because he's got his stuff and he's looking all this stuff up. I'm like, okay, and then once he'd cleared the air and got it down to Sardis, I'm like, oh yeah, it's Sardis. It's got to be Sardis. That makes total sense. But I didn't do that work. He did. So I just
start by looking up what words mean.
Yeah, but but with the Bible, you've got like 35 confluences. So I'm not a good religion.
Well,
person.
you're a technologist, so I'll tell you.
And I will say that numerous people try to get me to denounce the authority of the scriptures, and I, what do they say? I can neither confirm nor deny the authority of the scriptures. Okay, so just leave me alone and don't bother me about religious stuff.
Well, here's where I.
And I'm a Catholic. But I don't want to be a religious authority. That's not my job.
So I've had this theory for a long time, since I became a computer science major because I'm lazy. And it's funny because I think that there's something that there's a weird mindset that people who are into computer science have, which is that I don't really want to do the work. I want to get the machine to do the work for me. So I'll spend 10 hours trying to figure out how to get the computer to do the work so that it takes 10 minutes to do the work instead of 100 hours to do the work, right? But so you'll spend a huge, what seems like a disproportionate amount of time writing code and getting things all set up so that you could just push a button and go get things done. But I could take these questions that people have now and I can go ask my database that I've spent the last 6 months building, because I've been, at the same time I'm writing my book, I'm building this database in order to fact check all of the things that I'm writing about it in the book.
Do we have a lot more questions to get to, or?
We have two, maybe one.
Okay.
One, actually.
Okay.
So but I'll get that it's 404. So maybe we should just go to the next question.
Okay.
So the point is that I have this amazing data set that I built now so that I can go ask questions, things like that. T-Box Tango says, how about the Swiss banking authorities? I
don't have any particular interest. I'm much more focused on the city of London bankers. However, they're clearly connected to the Swiss. And I do think I know I ran into information about the Swiss banks recently, and I have to dig it out. But yeah, so I don't have specific information. I feel like I learned an insight about why Switzerland for the Swiss banking, but I can't remember what it was. Yeah, the banking goes back to the Sepharads. The Sepharads controlled the silver and gold. They've always controlled the silver and gold, and the silver and gold is the basis of the banking. So,
and if you think about it, banking is a form of magic, because Geneva really got
okay. One of the things that I put up last time was the connection between the Huguenots and the Sephardim. And there's huge connections between the Huguenots and the Sephardim, and it's all banking. And the Huguenots are very much associated with the banking in Switzerland. It's all the kind of French. It's the French Huguenot Sephardim that are kind of behind the Swiss banks. But it's the Dutch and English Sephardim that are behind the Bank of the City of London. So it's all it's all the Sephardim. They're all
Didn't the
Sephardim.
same thing happen to the Huguenots in France that happened to the Jews in Spain? Wasn't there a big crackdown on them at one point?
Yeah, because they're always the victims. They all got sold as
slaves to the Venetians.
Oh yeah, they were. They're all those poor long-suffering Huguenots. They're so discriminated against. Baha, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. anyway, and I'm sure there was some very good, sincere families, but if you look at the Huguenot DNA, it's same thing. And the other thing from the thing I posted last time is they were comparing the Sephardim with the Huguenots, and they say, well, the things they have in common are they were oppressed religiously, they were merchants, and they were bankers, and they used secret societies. So it's like, oh yeah, that sounds really familiar.
Right. So these are the fingerprints, right?
Those are the fingerprints.
What I was going to say earlier is that, again, if you go back to there was another person who was talking about this epistemological thing that I was listening to before we got on the show today. But the idea of money, okay, you have a green piece of paper, it's made out of cotton, it's got green ink on it, and it has a number on it. And it allows you to go into a store and give it to somebody and they give you food, right? Okay. But if somebody landing from space looked at you, they'd say, look, they're trading this paper for food.
One of the things we learned from an author I really recommend is Alexander Del Mar.
Right.
Really, really a lot of information about mining and money. But one of the things I kind of learned from him, which I hadn't really thought about it, is the reason that they mint coins, and they mint coins with the king or the sovereign on them, is because what gives those coins universal value is the fact that they can be used to pay taxes.
Right.
So isn't that interesting? Without taxes, you'd be almost back to a barter system. But because everybody has to pay taxes, and this came up very much in the Continental because
you use the taxes to pay the army.
Yeah, and so what happened in the Continental, this is in American history too, is one of these states, because remember they used to just be states and colonies, they issued paper money that could be used to pay taxes. And then somebody came in and said, you can't do that anymore because they have to use the official paper. And by the way, all your debts have to be paid in gold. And so then they no longer worked. They couldn't be used as currency anymore. And then all of a sudden, only the people who had gold had any currency. So this is the taxes are actually no taxes, and then you wouldn't have coins. But you'd have to go, how many ounces of gold is this a cow worth or whatever?
Right. But that's an arbitrary. It's arbitrary and capricious. The belief that a piece of metal has a certain amount of value is a form of magic, because you're convincing people of an arbitrary connection.
But taxes are part of the magic.
Taxes are part of the magic, but
which implies coercive control of everything.
Here's the big idea.
Okay.
You can't have money without a monopoly on violence.
Yes, which is taxes. It's all related.
Government, the funding of government and the monopoly on violence are inextricably connected. So there's a direct relationship between the symbol of the fasci, which means a monopoly on violence, and a finance system.
Yep.
So I'm gonna. I see some other things. We'll get through them quickly, and then we can say goodbye. Somebody said there's a statue of Haym Solomon, George Washington, and Robert Morris in Chicago, Held Square. I'm wondering, is Held Square the end of Route 66? I'm trying to remember. And somebody said, read the book White Cargo. So I wrote down White Cargo. I don't know what it is, but I'll go look it up. And then last comment is somebody said, Wild Tangent says, isn't HSBC owned by Bill Browder? HSBC is the British Empire drug money laundering bank. What do they call it? Something of banks and criminals. Okay.
That's the. I don't. I thought it was.
And Bill Browder, again, what they do is that they'll pick somebody like Larry Ellison or Bill Browder or Ted Turner or Elon Musk or Bill Gates, and they'll say, here, go run this, and they get credit for it, like Horatio Alger. Bill Browder is, was one of the guys who went in and kind of looted the Soviet Union, and then Vladimir Putin kicked him out. And he created the Magnitsky Law and pretends that he's a victim. He's a bad actor in the acting sense. So anyway, that's all. I don't know that much about it. And now my
before we go, can I say one thing?
Yes.
I actually am working on my Substack. When I first joined, I was just going to let Peter do all the work and I was just going to show up. But I've got a Substack and I've got people who ask me intelligent questions, and I really appreciate that. And I actually wasn't going to do this, but I turned on donations. So if you want to donate to me, I will spend it all on my husband and he'll appreciate that. So, because he puts up with this a lot. Anyway, and so I just wanted to say my Substack is available, and if you want to follow Mrs. Heritage History, that would be great, because you'll get my posts. And also my handle is North Idaho Local, but my name is Mrs. Heritage History. So I actually do have a Substack, and I'm working on getting my Substack homepage in decent shape. It's a wreck because a lot of my stuff is on Peter's page and not my page. But I'm changing. I'm gonna get links to everything on Peter's page. Oh, by the end of the summer, I should have a decent Substack homepage.
Yeah, and
it just takes me a long time to get stuff done.
I knew you were going to do that, I would have pulled your page up, but I was answering this question here. Daryl Wayne 5307. When you recommend books, you might check to see if they're actually already on the Duke Report. Because the Third British Empire by Alfred Zimmern is not only on the Duke Report, but I think that if you scroll down here, there's a podcast. This is probably let me see. It's a 32-minute, 54-second podcast on the book. So it's you can highly recommend it. I highly recommend it, and it is recommended. It's actually on the Duke Report already. And then what I will do is I will go to Mrs. Heritage History's website, which is, how do I find this? Let me see. If I go here to Sephardic Phoenicians and I click on Mrs. Heritage History, it should just, right there.
There it is.
Bingo. So go to Mrs. Heritage History, which is, we have to give them the name. It's North Idaho Local.substack.com. And maybe you can go grab MrsHeritageHistory.com or link it from Heritage History.
And I wrote this file to link to all of the articles I've done, and I'm updating it now. It should be updated by the end of the week. I'm going to add it. I'm going to break it up into a couple more things so you can find things that I'm working on more easily.
Then people can upgrade to paid, which is, you're $4, $5 a month. So same price as the DukeReport.com. There's no excuse. If you get value out of this stuff, there's no excuse not to become a paid subscriber to the Duke Report and Heritage History, because it's the way that we keep the lights on.
And I just want to say, I have been thinking for the last 10 years that nobody is interested in what I have to say about this stuff. And I don't blame them. It's like there's so much weirdness going on in the world, and there's so many things. And knowing how all this weird history happened, I just, when I tried to talk to people about this, or engage even conspiracy theorists about this 7 or 8 years ago, people just didn't get it. So I wasn't expecting people to get this. And I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback, which I'm still shocked by. So I really appreciate the people who are listening and care about this stuff. It's great. I wasn't expecting it. It's one of the reasons I was kind of slow on the uptake, because I was kind of shocked to have like more than 100 followers, and now I'm like up to 700 or something ridiculous.
What's interesting to me is that there's a lot of people out there. I think I participate in this other podcast called Union of the Unwanted. And I didn't do it. It's usually on every other Monday. And I didn't do it yesterday because I was really like, chapter 24 will be done by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. And I get into this tunnel, and it's the only thing that I can do it's all that I can do to just completely like focus on everything that I'm doing and get finished. But one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of podcasters who have been kind of doing this and revealing a lot of the information are getting really, really, I don't want to use, I'll use the word black pilled. Okay. They're getting kind of depressed and dejected.
Oh, I'm super happy. I'm
And
so unblack pilled.
I
I am
believe
happy
it's,
every day.
I honestly believe it's because they don't have God. I think that if you have a good relationship with God, and if you understand what your place in the world is, and that things are not going to get better and it's still going to be okay, then you're going to get really depressed.
No. I've said this before and I'll say it again. 10 years ago, we could not have this discussion.
Yep.
And if we
You
did,
couldn't have
we
had
would,
this discussion with me.
yeah. And I tried bringing stuff up, and just people just weren't ready. They would look at you like you had 5 heads, and you can't make progress, and you can't, and they don't know history enough people don't know enough history. And now everybody's all over the city of London, and they know that's a thing, and they know, and all I need to do is to get them off the Ashkenazi Jew and onto the Sephardim. I'm just trying to redirect this big flow and away from,
but it's not just Sephardic Jews; it's Sephardim writ law. I mean, all over.
Yeah. Like there's this China's Sephardim, the family that controls Hong Kong is Sephardim. They're all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. All right, you're kind of breaking up.
Okay.
So maybe it's just God telling us that it's time for us to say goodnight. And
Talk to you later.
All right. So thanks everybody. If you want to support the Duke Report, go to thedukereport.com or go to thedukereport.com. I'm sorry. Start again. If you want to support the Duke Report, go to thedukereport.com or thedukereport.substack.com and become a paid subscriber. $5 a month, cheaper than Starbucks, depending upon what your drink is. And that will be a tremendous support for Jessica and me as we try to make our way in this new world where our rent has increased because our town was burned down. I'm still struggling with people who don't understand that the Palisades was burned down on purpose. Like, they just don't get it. And they think that if they had gotten Spencer Pratt elected as mayor of Los Angeles, that something would have changed. And it's like, I'm sorry, you're my friends, but you don't get it. Like, you just don't get what's going on here. Anyway, if you want to support us, because we need your support, become paid subscribers to the Duke Report. And with that, I will say good night, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us this long, and we'll see you again soon.